Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bridge from the Past, Art Across U.S. History. I'm your host, Mary, and I'm back with new glasses and a new primary source for you. Today, we're looking at a political cartoon that addresses the debate surrounding the ratification of the Treaty of Versailles after the First World War. Even though this cartoon is slightly over 100 years old, it raises an important question that we've been grappling with ever since the founding. What is the proper role of the United States in the world? Let's jump into our cartoon and see what it has to say. Our cartoon is titled Interrupting the Ceremony, and it was done by the cartoonist John McCutcheon. It appeared in the Chicago Tribune. The actual date is unknown, but the ratification or the debate of the ratification of this treaty took place between 1919 and 1920, so we can safely assume it falls somewhere in that window. Right away, I am starting to think of some questions. Even if I didn't know the title of this cartoon, I see I have all the makings of a wedding ceremony. I have an officiant, I have a bride, I have a groom, and over here I have some witnesses. I'm not sure who this bride and groom are, so that might be my first question. I also think that this groom looks a little nervous. He's sweating and he's got some serious side-eye going on over here, so I don't know what that's about. And this guy right here is interrupting the ceremony, as the title would lead me to believe. I can see that he's labeled U.S. Senate, and I can also see he looks pretty angry, so I'm not sure what that is about. I have never personally interrupted a wedding ceremony, but I would imagine that's kind of a big deal, and he must be pretty mad about something. So what's going on there? And I can also see he's holding something that says constitutional rights. And I've got another label down here, foreign entanglements. That is a phrase that definitely rings a bell. Peace proceedings, League of Nations. There's a lot happening in this cartoon, and I'm going to need a little bit more context before I can dive into it a little bit more clearly. Here are 3 things I should know before I can more closely analyze this cartoon and think about what it has to say about the US's role in the world. First of all, in 1918, even before World War I ends, President Woodrow Wilson issues his 14 points. He makes a speech to Congress where he outlines his vision for the world after the war ends. So he was very idealistic. He wanted to ensure that the post-war world was set up that a conflict like this wouldn't happen again. The war ends in 1918. The Allies win. We had joined the war on the side of the Allies, so we get to write the peace treaty, right? The winners get to write the treaties. And the Constitution has something to say about treaties. The Constitution gives the power to write treaties to the president with the advice and consent of the Senate. And the Senate has to approve that treaty with a 2/3 majority. This is straight up checks and balances. President's making the treaty with the advice and consent of the Senate, and the Senate has to approve that treaty. So Woodrow Wilson does not really consult with the Senate before going off to participate in peace talks. So the Senate happens to be controlled by Republicans. Wilson is a Democrat, and the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, the committee that would oversee the debate on the peace treaty, is run by Senator Henry Cabot Lodge. So Lodge is kind of bitter already that Wilson isn't really consulting with him before he goes off to Paris. And Wilson personally went to Paris to participate in the peace talks. He's breaking precedent there because the US president had never gone, personally. He would usually send a representative. And part of the reason why Wilson goes personally is because he believes so strongly in his 14 points. And he personally wants to make sure that this guides the peace talks in Paris. The Treaty of Versailles, the peace treaty that comes out of these peace talks, includes Article 10, which is the League of Nations. So a League of Nations was part of Wilson's 14 points, and he considered it key to the whole settlement. So this League of Nations, this group of international countries from throughout the world would come together in the hope of preventing another world war from happening. So Wilson really sees this as the centerpiece of the peace treaty. So he comes back to the US with this treaty in tow, and that's where we get this cartoon. Now that I have a little bit more context, this cartoon is starting to make a lot more sense. So I can see, again, this is in fact a wedding, and the groom is Uncle Sam. So Uncle Sam is wedding himself to foreign entanglements. So the bride is representing other countries, right? This League of Nations, so I can see that's sort of the centerpiece of this ceremony, as it was the centerpiece of Wilson's peace treaty, is basically having the United States join an international body where the US, according to people who criticize the treaty, isn't really looking out for the US's interests. It's more concerned with foreign entanglements or other countries. And this was a big objection, one of the big objections by senators like Henry Cabot Lodge. And you can see here, he's holding this paper that says constitutional rights. So his grounds for interrupting the ceremony are constitutional rights. The Senate is supposed to give advice and consent to the president in making the treaties. They weren't consulted before the treaty was over. And once the treaty had been presented to them by Wilson, again, personally, Wilson was not interested in compromising. So Article 10, that League of Nations, was really the sticking point. This is bringing the US into foreign entanglements. That's that wonderful phrase from George Washington's farewell address. So beware of foreign entanglements. We need to look out for our own, right? That's sort of the thinking behind that phrase. The Senate's objecting to that. They're willing to compromise on it, but Wilson isn't interested in compromise. So these checks and balances are sort of breaking down. So for checks and balances to work, you have to have a willingness to compromise. There needs to be some modicum of courtesy and respect, and we're just not having any conversation going on here. So the Senate does in fact reject the Treaty of Versailles 3 times, and it's finally sort of put to bed in 1920. So the US never joins the League of Nations, and there's a lot of bitterness between Woodrow Wilson and the Senate as a result. This debate surrounding the ratification of the Treaty of Versailles goes back to a bigger question. Should the US take a more active role in foreign affairs, or should we look more inward? This is a question that's timeless, right? People have been arguing about this, again, since the founding. So what do you think? I'm going to toss it out to you. What is the proper role of the United States in the world? And how has it changed over time? We're certainly not the same country in 2021 as we were in 1919, as we were in 1789. So this is a question that keeps popping up, and there isn't really any easy answer. And that's what makes it a good question. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. That's all we have time for on today's Bridge from the Past, but you can come back every other Thursday. We'll be back with more primary source fun. If you liked this video, if you learned something, please like it and subscribe to our channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love for you to get involved. And speaking of getting involved, you should check out our We the Students essay contest. We want to know how you would answer the question, what is the relationship between equality and justice? You can read more and sign up on our website and submit your essay by April 15th, and you could win some serious scholarship prize money. That's all we have time for again. So until next time, everybody, take care.